Hi there, and welcome to the Peters Podcast, where today we're talking about drugs. And let me put a disclaimer very first. Within the first minute, I just want to say drugs are bad. Don't do drugs. However, my friend, who, to protect the innocent, I'm going to call her Paige, wanted me to have this discussion because, we both fell into hard times of doing drugs. I think I've said this before, where me and her were both on a different spectrum of which drug of choice we were using. But we're both clean, and we both are now workaholics, so we've both found different ways of coping with our drug habits. What was funny is how we use different drugs, but we're using the same coping mechanism, which is workaholic. So, a drug is a chemical substance that it causes a change in organisms' psychology or psychological or physiology, physical or psychological. When consumed, drugs are typically distinguished from food and substances. So, yes, that is exactly what I wanted to talk about. I did a lot of courses on trying to cope with the outside world, being an introvert and also having a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. I've had to kind of realize that, to put it point blank, one of the things I had to do was a cognitive thing, where if someone was walking past and I knew them and I waved and they didn't wave back, I could interpret it differently than most people, because when most people interpret it as just like, oh, that person's ignoring me, what the hell, and then you message them and you're like, what the hell, and instead of going through all that rigmarole, just assume like, oh, maybe they were busy. And then you can message them later like, hey, I saw you downtown, like, I waved at you, like, I just wanted to know, I wanted to say hi. And instead of making it like all about how you feel rejected, you can maybe put it to a point of like, oh, I realized that you could have been busy, or maybe you weren't paying attention, your headphones were in or something, like, I don't know what was going on. And like show that you actually do understand where they're coming from. There are different types, going back to the actual topic, there are different types of drugs, such as medicinal, and there are some forms of like medication, but the ones that I learned throughout the course were like, drug is a food, or food is a drug. Drug is a food. Food is a drug. Because anybody with an eating disorder, even though that's really plainly psychological, they will eat themselves sick, and it is quite the phenomenon. And you can have really good food, and food that is good for you, and it makes you feel better. And then you can have stuff that is like McDonald's, where it boosts your serotonin, and then all of a sudden you crash because that shit is just terrible for you. Every once in a while is fine, in moderation. Like alcohol is considered a drug because it does affect the body. Every once in a while, in moderation, like having 1 or 2 beer with dinner, that's fine. But every day consistently, that is a bit much. There are some drugs and I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but marijuana is a drug, and a lot of people are addicted to it. And the people who are going to comment that people are not addicted to it are the people who are either addicted to it or are just flat out in denial that they are addicted to it. Because if you use it for sleep every night, that's fine. I mean, figure out a different method to get to sleep, but it's fine. I don't see I don't see how people can't tell that they're addicted to something when obviously they are, when they have to have it. Otherwise, it's like cigarettes and nicotine. That's considered a drug. They can classify that as a drug, but people can't classify cannabis as a drug. Why? Because cannabis is a relaxing thing. Well, yeah, it can relax you, but if you're using it every day and are reliant on it, therefore it is a drug. Nootropics is actually a drug. I didn't know that. Nootropics are a wide range of natural and synthetic supplements or drugs and other substances that claim to... So coffee would be another one. Coffee's a drug. I want to pinpoint this right down to the narrow bone, is that I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I'm not saying that that I'm without a fault. I do have a couple of drinks here and there, and I'm also not prone to using what is classified as a drug. Like, I smoke cigarettes and I have a coffee. Every once in a while, I'll drink. I don't smoke weed because I can't. Otherwise, I probably would. And I have done drugs. I quit. I quit using hard substances, recreational drugs as they're called, which is the next theme here, apparently. Ketamine is a horse tranquilizer. Why is it on here? There is actually a very long list of different types of drugs, and honestly, when I made this podcast, I kept on denying that I wanted to make one because I didn't want to be the next, because I wanted to make one where I can talk about everything and nothing, like anything I wanted, just, and I knew there was a competition in Joe Rogan, where, you know, he does talk about everything and nothing, but the most I can say is that I'm not gonna be like him, because the one thing that stood out the most was the fact that he was talking about one of the entries in this list, which is LSD, and honestly, I don't recommend it. I know that he does, but I don't recommend acid to anybody, whether it's peyote or anything else. It's not. It is a mind-altering drug, and honestly, living your life through a certain lens doesn't classify you as enlightened. There's no enlightenment in tainting anything. I'm not trying to be a straight-edge person by any means, but to a degree, I am. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend otherwise that my viewpoints on substances of drugs are going to be anything more than my way of saying, drugs bad, don't do drugs. But like, I'd be a hypocrite in saying that I haven't. It's more of a, like, I don't want to say do as I say, not as I do, but like, at the same time, it's like sticking your hand in a bear trap and being like, oh yeah, don't play with the bear trap, it hurts. So in some senses, the saying of like, do as I say, not as I do, sometimes is a very good implication that the people who are trying to say it are in fact trying to help you. I love how they don't specify every way to take drugs. Because looking at Wikipedia, I'm looking at LSD, and one of the ways is like by mouth, under the tongue, injection. You could also hoop it, which is terrible on itself. If you thought, like, taking it and the possibility of it tasting like ass was terrible, imagine just sticking it in your ass. There's one where it's just like, there's one where you actually can just stick it in your ass, and it's terrible, absolutely terrible. I do want to say that there are some drugs that are there's classifications of what I would consider a drug. Like marijuana. Marijuana is not a life ruiner. I would classify it under. The one that makes you just hungry and lazy, absolutely lazy. There's some people who live their life, smoking weed, and they're completely fine. They don't have any problems living their day-to-day life, high on marijuana, and that's all right. And sometimes, that's the balance. That's why it's not a life ruiner is because it's it depends on the people. Some people are good on it. It's no different than an anti-anxiety, but sometimes it can get a little overwhelming and make people more anxious than it does actually bring their anxiety down. So overall, I would say that it's not terrible, but and then there's life ruiners like heroin, speed. Speed was mine. Cocaine, methamphetamines. So the biggest ones that they classify, and actually some of these I actually would consider life ruiners. Let me go through the life ruiners. So cocaine, methamphetamine, ecstasy, Adderall can be, but overall, Adderall is supposed to be a good drug, but it's not. So the ones that aren't life ruiners, there would be two different kinds of non-life ruiners, like Ritalins and marijuana, or in this case it says synthetic marijuana. And those two I would consider not life ruiners, but they're not exactly good for you either, so I wouldn't recommend taking them. And then there's caffeine, which I live off of, because coffee. Associated risks, and this is addictiongroup.org. I went into a new site. I started clicking things. So, these effects include anxiety, paranoia, psychosis, high body temperature, depression, heart failure, stroke, seizures, opioids, which are another life ruiners, which are heroin, morphine, hydrocodone. Oh, I used to use that. Why did I say that like I was excited? That's a terrible thing. Hydrocodone is, let's just say you can get super relaxed. I don't recommend it, because all I did was puke. And it's terrible and it sucks. But you don't realize you're puking. Instead, you wake up and you're just like, fuck, what happened? I don't remember doing anything. And then, yeah. So that's the thing. Opium. You can get opium from poppies. Don't ask me how I know that. Some poppies are okay, but I don't recommend any of them. Norco. I think that's like Narcan. What the fuck's Norco? I'm gonna get like flagged looking this up. Norco drug. Oh, it's acetaminophen. Oh. Yeah, don't take too much of that. Shit will ruin your kidneys. I guess it's Narco. Norco? Anyways, moving on. Oxycontin. Cotton. Oxycontin. That's another. That and hydrochlorcodeine. Those two are just like, they suck. They suck so much because they just ruin you. It's no different than heroin. It fucks you up. I don't recommend it. Percocet. Same idea. Codeine. They usually mix codeine with cocaine. That's a fun fact. They mix cocaine and codeine because they are the same color. And yeah, so if your drug dealer's low, they'll just crush up some codeine and sell it to you same price, because drug dealers don't care. So, withdrawal symptoms: nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, upset stomach, anyways, anxiety, inability to sleep, hot and cold flashes, excessive sweating, muscle cramps, and runny nose, watery eyes, and sweating. Depressants. I don't. Alcohol is the big one. Xanax, Valium. Half of these I can't even say. So yeah, go down to the site. I don't feel like. Let's just talk about the ones that I can pronounce and the ones that I do know. So Xanax, Valium, and alcohol. Xanax is terrible. Don't do Xanax. Valium, unless you're wanting to get off of it and make millions of dollars like Eminem, I wouldn't recommend that one either. Alcohol, moderation. hallucinogenics, mushrooms, peyote, and LSD. Fuck, like, no. Hallucinogen is, persisting perspect. Oh, they give you flashbacks. Yeah. Which, if you already suffer from flashbacks like I do, it's not that great. Don't do that. Disordered cognition. Moving on to dissociative, which is ketamine, DXM, and PCP. Yeah. So I don't think people should take any of these. Because one of the symptoms, like one of the effects, is toast a bath, toaster to bathtub, which I don't recommend to anyone. If you feel this way, get help. Thank you. Inhalants. Inhalants. Alright. Room deodor. Who the fuck's using a room deodorizer? Are you serious? Marker, paint thinner, gasoline, and glue fumes. So, all of England's punk scene, don't come at me. You know it's true. Nitrous oxide. Oh no, I was thinking of nitric oxide. Never mind. That's don't. I've had nitrous oxide only because I needed my teeth removed. And then when I woke up and it wore off, I felt the entirety of all the pain. I felt blood in my mouth. It was gross. I don't like it. Aerosol sprays. I didn't know you can get fucked up on aerosol. Loss of smell, brain damage, nosebleeds, weakness, euphoria, increased heart rate, loss of consciousness, hallucinations, and slurred speech. So in other words, I'm going to skip cannabis because it's terrible. Anyways, yeah, just don't start huffing shit. You fuck up your lungs. So yeah, that's it for that one. I don't understand I understand why people want to do drugs, but I want to make it clear that I don't agree with it. It's gonna be the shortest podcast ever, and I'm telling people just don't do drugs, because it is simple. Don't do drugs. You fuck up your life, and then what? Do you know how many homeless people are actually there because all they do is drugs? Yeah, about a good percentage of the population homeless. Population, mental illness percentage. There. I'm gonna throw out this number. I'm assuming that this is probably wrong, but for homeless people, 76 apparently, or 64. 64%. 64% sounds better. Um, yeah, 64% are mentally ill. The rest are on fucking smack. Don't, if anything, I don't recommend anyone doing drugs because it just doesn't make sense. It's a terrible way to live. You rot out your fucking teeth. Um, you don't get those years back. You don't, like, I know people who live under bridges because, like, I come from a small town, but I know people who live out in a big city close to where I live. I'm just gonna say the big city's name. So Vancouver. I know someone who lives in Vancouver who lives under the fucking bridge in Vancouver, like, just doing heroin, smoking heroin. Or at least that's what I was told. Is that this guy just sits around and does drugs. And last I heard, he was trying to go to rehab, but like, still, like the damage is still done. You're doing drugs. Your your way of life is now disrupted because you decide that this thing that's making you feel a certain way is coherently more important than um, the responsibilities around you. That life is so bad that you can't function as a human being. And I think that is both sick, disgusting, and I don't agree with it. If you are on a substance that is life-threatening, then I do recommend going to seek help. But overall, if it's like weed, just maybe cut back on weed. But if it's anything else like heroin, cocaine, meth, especially, at least in the city I live in, get help, get yourself clean. I've known so many people who are getting clean right now, and I'm so proud of them. Even if they've been clean for years, or clean for months, or clean for days, like, I'm still so proud of the people who chose to be clean and chose to be happy over a miserable life of wandering around, wondering where you put your fucking thing you stole out of someone's backyard because you wanted to sell it for another hit. It's honestly a disgusting way of living. People look at you funny. People look at you like you're absolutely like you're absolutely disgusting, even though that maybe you're not disgusting. Maybe you're just tired of the way someone treated you, or maybe you had a traumatic experience as a kid. And, that's okay. Like, you should seek help for that. You shouldn't have to live your life scared of everything. But traumatic experiences aside, people shouldn't put themselves through torture in order to live. That's not a way of living. That is the way of surviving. And I don't believe that people should survive. I think they should live. But the most I can say is don't fucking do drugs. It sucks. It sucks. You have ruined your life, and then you end up, you either end up dead or in jail, or both. And having a broken nose sucks, especially when you're talking about drugs. Yeah, so I don't know what else to say. Don't do drugs. Drugs are bad. Yeah, that's it. Don't do drugs. So anyways, check out the description below for some beard products by The Beard Struggle. I don't know what else to say to this. I'm gonna go fuck off now. Okay, bye-bye.